All right, we are seeing that a lot of reactions and concern by both the protesters and those who are also calling the protesters not to protest. I mean, it is only Nigeria we're having that playing out. But whatever this interest might be, it is on the grounds that the people only want to see the government that works. And the end bad governance protest is coming at a time where the people have been fed up with the issues, the crisis of governance, and the economic hardship generally, and the policies of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, among other issues. But I'm being joined by an expert who understands the challenges this may look like and the concern about what is turning out already to be a violence protest. Joining us is Dr. Wisdom Enang, a public affairs analyst, and of course connecting with us virtually to give us a perspective and understanding about the conditions right there if the federal government seems to be confused at a time like this. Several concern about the government to call on the protesters to shelve this protest has not in any way yielded result. The protesters have started the demonstration right here from the Federal Capital Territory, Lagos, Edo. Many states are already queuing behind the protest. It's now becoming a national issue, just away from things that were just starting from the social media, now becoming a reality in the country, creating tensions everywhere in the country in a bid to persuade other Nigerians. Doctor, good to have you join us on the program. All right, Doctor, if you
Thank
can
you
hear
very
me,
much.
give me an understanding about the attack in Kano, because we understand that the Minister of Communications is worried about the destruction of that technological hub, which, according to him, was constructed to support Nigeria's technical talent to accelerate program. But right now, it has been set ablaze by young people who went out on a protest. This time, we can't really know if it was the peaceful protesters or hoodlums who hijacked the process. Give us an understanding about that issue right there.
I think very sad issue, really, because the intent of the protest, like the protesters aligned, was to lay out certain demands that was, kind of get the federal government to give attention and timelines to those demands. But that has been hijacked, and that's not the intent of the protest. So I would believe that this was hijacked by hoodlums who are not aligned with the entire philosophy of the protest. And now that has come at a cost that is going to take us back economically, at least maybe 10 years in the past, and undo some of the gains that Nigeria has had.
What would you rather suggest? Because all attempts by government to persuade protesters is not in any way bringing result. And we are afraid that if this continues tomorrow and in the next 8-9 days, it probably may lead to the loss of life. Thanks to God, today it has only been loss of properties. We don't know what may play out tomorrow.
Yeah, I think to be honest, there are multiple ways the government should go about to quell this protests, and primarily through dialogue. I think the youths have laid out their first demonstrative move, and that's today. Yes, there was some little bit of violence here and there. There are some unreported indications that people lost their lives, but we haven't validated it. However, I think an emergency meeting needs to be called by the government to say, what can we do? What can we say? What are the timelines, very importantly, that we can do to let people have confidence? This is all about confidence, I'll tell you. Now, if we look at some of the government's plans and the playbook before they came into power, it was said that if they remove fuel subsidy and float the naira, that the naira will be floating around 500 to 550 naira per dollar. That was the face value, all the way maybe max to 600. However, I don't think they were prepared for a scenario where the naira is going above 1,600. I don't think they had a contingency plan for when everything drifts south. And that is why the youths are losing patience to say, look, you have done your policies, they are not working, but we are not seeing mitigations in place. And these are things that the government needs to come out and say, okay, this is our plans to be able to reverse the bad economic trend, and this is how much time that we need. We don't want to have be told, give us time. How much time, and what are your stewardship towards the plans and aspirations of your economic playbook? Those are the things that the government needs to quickly come up. The second thing that we need to come out and do is to have an emergency meeting with the governors, because the governors play a very vital role. I'll give you a context. In Akwa Ibom today, there is no protest. And the reason there's no protest is that the governor has done a lot to be able to, meet the yearnings and the pains of the average person. So the people don't see the need to protest. So the thing is, the governors have a critical role, not all about the center. So the governors need to work with the presidency to say, what kind of confidence levels do we need to be sending to people right now, just immediately, so that we can call it on a state-by-state level. If we're able to dialogue, we can arrest this very quickly. I think that's the way. A dialogue involving the protesters, the governors, and the presidency is the way forward.
All right, Wisdom, let's look at on the part of the security agencies and civil society organizations. Do you think somewhere along the line the civil society organization shied away from their responsibility by backing out after the closed-door meeting with the federal government? All they did was call out to say they were not part of the protest anymore and try to dissuade people. And also for security agencies, do you think they've done well enough on the first day of the protest?
The thing is, right, where I am, I was able to go about my business and buy, for example, fuel today, and the securities were not having, they were not out there to, sort of victimize anyone. They were actually making sure that everybody's okay, from where I stand in Lagos here. So, I mean, from where I stand, yes, they did their job, and for the most part of Lagos, I think they sent out that signal that, okay, we're here to protect you. But I think when the violence was about to ensue, I saw some clips where the security agencies were trying to disperse those kind of crowds from creating violence. But of course, that the same cannot be said all over the country. There are areas where the security agencies were inciting that the potential for violence in their actions. Of course, these are things that hovers around the training and ethics of these security agencies. I don't think it is homogeneous enough. Some areas were doing well. Some areas definitely need improvement when it comes to crowd management, when it comes to protest management. Now, when you see you talk about some of those groups that were supposed to support the protesters. And my question is, what made them back out? Is it that the federal government has laid out plans, or what are the plans? Because that would tell me whether or not they failed the protesters or not. Or were they concerns? Were they intelligent information? Because again, there's a problem. I saw some notes that said they have postponed the protest, and another note saying, no, this is fake news. So we're not sure what it is. And I don't think it doesn't help those that are really willing to protest, not having clarity on whether the protest was actually being called off by those groups and they were not backing them anymore, or whether or not they were the sort of indication from the federal government to meet certain demands, which means it was the right judgment to postpone that that protest. Or was there any dialogue, or some people will say, was there any exchange of money that meant that those guys were kind of meant to be quiet through being indulged by money? So again, there are different theories, but it's really confusing and difficult to pass a judgment on which of it applies, and then to tell whether they failed the protesters or not.
We are more concerned about how we can go out of this situation, because it is now a reality that the people are protesting. And when you ask them, some of them are saying that the removal of subsidy has brought untold hardship on them. You are in the oil sector, doctor. I understand that you have a knowledge about why government, had to remove subsidy. All the presidential aspirants and the candidates in the country have subscribed to removal of subsidy. But it looks as if after a year, people have been reduced from the level they were a year ago to a condition and a situation where some of them can't even afford livelihood. Some families are bitter about the situation. I had to talk to when we were on the street, out there for the protest, covering the protest. Some of them also, I saw a father who demonstrated the fact that when he was leaving the house, he had told the wife that I may not come back alive, that I have to do this because I don't even know where the next meal may come out to feed my family and all of that. There's an outcry about the subsidy removal. Doctor, what can you advise at a time like this, understanding the implications about why government removes subsidy and now the implications on the lives of the people?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think removing of subsidy was very sacrosanct across all candidates of the presidential election. However, what was not sacrosanct was the removal of fuel subsidy and the flotation of the naira simultaneously. That was the one that cracked the camel's back. Now, when you even look at the whole thing, it is further amplified with the fact that you remove your subsidy, you also float the naira without a proper consequence analysis, because the consequence analysis will tell you what are you gonna do when things go wrong, how are you gonna fix certain things as they go south, what are your mitigations in place, and then that would tell us exactly that you have covered the worst case scenario, and at worst that your risk is either eliminated or the consequences of the risk has been reduced to as low as reasonably probable. Now, when you talk about the government, as I said, when I looked at their economic policies, they actually estimated that when they put those economic policies within a 6 months to 1 year period, that the dollar would be between, as I said, 500 to 600 max. But that hasn't been the case. And the case is, how do you respond to this? They didn't budget for the inflation that has gone off the roof, including, a food inflation that is almost, that's above 35% at the moment. So the truth of the matter is, at this point in time, what does the government needs to do? The government needs to relook at some of its policies and ask itself, what are the things that we need? Fine, we have done this policy, we've done it, the damage is there. What can we do immediately? And also, as I said, this whole thing needs to work with the state governors. No matter what you do in the FCT, if your state governors are not responsible and they're not, putting out measures to cushion the effect at the state level, there's nothing the federal government can do. So this is going to be a joint effort. But we definitely we need to look at our austerity measures again and ask ourselves, are we going to be able to survive these austerity measures? And at the end of the day, when the better Nigeria comes, is it going to be at the cost of human lives and I know that has been caused by bad economics? These are the questions that the economic managers need to answer very quickly before we get ourselves into anarchy.
All right, still on the sector where you hold sway, the recent move by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu giving directives for the NNPCL to sell crude oil to the Dangote refinery in naira. Do you think that was long overdue? And why do you think there was this deliberate attempt to technically sabotage the effort of the Dangote refinery, production process?
Right. I think first question. Thank you very much. The idea of selling in naira has been long overdue. I think it's one of those things that is really going to help the naira. I think just in terms of timing, just as you say, the timing is very important. But I think the timing was done deliberately. And I tell you what, the government tried a number of things, floating the currency to make sure that it's a little bit more competitive than what it used to be, and people can come in and trade in a free market system. Then to remove the volatility, they had to reduce the variance between the official market and the parallel market. That was the second move. And then, of course, the third move that the federal government did was to say, okay, we would periodically inject money into the economy, to make sure that we don't have that forex deficits, and that if the exchange rate is going haywire, then we can curb the those sort of undulations on the forex market. Now, the next thing to do is to see how we can promote the sales of certain sectors or certain products in using our local currency. That's really important. Russia has done it and they're successful at it. To a large extent, India has done it and they're successful. So I think it's a step-by-step playbook. So yes, it is long overdue, but as I said, from where I said, it's a very tactical plan that the federal government had put in place to make sure that they're doing one plan after the order to be able to stabilize the local currency. Now, the question that I ask is, do we have enough supply to sustain the momentum? And that's very important because we have a lot of forward sales. We have also on the contract side, the JV partners and the PSC partner, the production sharing contracts, they all take their own share of the crude as well. And then we have our own, side of the crude. We need to still sell to make, forex, dollars. We also need to be able to pay back our forward, sales, forward loans that are reserved back. We equally need to give the Dangote refinery in naira. So I think there's a number of things that is going to go good because it's going to improve the naira exchange rate, and it's going to help domestic refining. It's also going to stabilize the price if you are dealing in naira predominantly. It will stabilize the price. The big question though is, can we have enough quantity to sustain the momentum to make a difference to to Dangote refinery? Speaking of the wrangle between the NMDPRA and the Dangote refinery, I think it's just a very bad mix of lack of an alignment of the vision when it comes to prioritizing domestic refining, and also lack of communication. Because in March 2024, the ppm allowable limit for sulfur content was 1,000 for 1,000 for PMS, petroleum premium motor spirit, and 3,000 for AGO, which is diesel. Now, before that was before March 2024. After March 2024, March the 1st, the government reviewed it and said all products should come in with 200 ppm. What does that mean? Even if the Dangote refinery at the first instant was producing between 600 to 1,000 ppm of sulfur content, that means it was still valid in any scale before March 2024. But the truth is, after March 2024, I think the regulator had not caught up with the Dangote refinery to see how well they were doing on stewarding their reduction of their sulfur target. So even when Dangote had gone to doing below 70 ppm and planning to do below about 10 ppm, the regulator was still thinking of was still quoting the emissions targets at the time that Dangote started, which was actually valid at the time. So I think it was just the regulator not doing their job, and that is also shown when the regulator doesn't even have a laboratory, and the regulator is depending on third-party tests, and the regulator itself is not overseeing and ensuring the comprehensiveness of his tests. I'll give you a little bit of context. In January 2022 and February 2022, there was a lot of inventory of petrol that was imported with high levels of methanol. And what that meant is a lot of our cars were bad. But what does that mean? It means that the test was not comprehensive, because the NMPC did tell us that the Nigerian test for the petroleum product does not include methanol. So some people were able to blend high levels of methanol in our fuel and cause us to get that sort of bad fuel that almost knocks a lot of people's engines. At the end of the day, it's about how well are our regulators owning their jobs, how well are they taking ownership, and how well are they keeping in touch or protecting the industry that they are supposed to protect.
All right, Dr. Wisdom, my question to you would be, what would you see as the international implication of this protest in Nigeria?
Okay, thank you very much. Recently, if you have been observing the foreign exchange market, you're going to see that the inflow or the influx of money exchange in that market is not as high as before. And that is why the naira is slipping. So we're having very less people willing to come into the market at the moment. And the reason is this: a number of things. We have reached I think the limits that are raising our interest rates can help us put in a lot of money. So we need a lot of more ingenious ideas. But again, when you come and look at why investors behave that way, even in the stock market, the wait and see approach is always deployed by investors when they have uncertainty. That's it. When they're looking at, okay, there's a lot of complaints, there's a lot of hunger, things may happen, protests may erupt, war may erupt, things may degenerate into war. That is when they deploy the wait and see. So what is going to happen is a lot of investors are going to extend their wait and see period to say, okay, if we were going to wait for 6 months and see before we invest, we're going to extend it for about a year because the uncertainty is getting even further. This increases, the whole process increases the rating of Nigeria's uncertainty when it comes to the potential for violence and war to break out. And all investors are going to say, I tell you what, all plans or portfolios that we plan for Nigeria has been, extended for the next 1 year, and that's what is going to happen. We're going to lose a lot of potential investments, and even if they are, still there, a lot of those investors would shift their outlook for at least 1 year.
All right, Doctor, just before I let you go, yesterday the Ministry of Information had to hold the World Press Conference, and they invited some of the ministers to again re-echo what government are doing. But it seems the people are not still listening. Do you feel that there is a trust issue between the people and what the government are doing? Or is it the fact that some of the policies of government are meeting to the reality on the ground where when you go to the market, you understand how much a family have to buy things at the market, the livelihood, accommodation, transportation, and all these issues. And so some of the grammars generally is not making sense to the people. But government are saying we are doing enough, we are on track. Tinubu's administration is addressing the many issues we've had in this country. What is assessment of these commitment by both the government and the people?
All right, thank you very much. As I said, the only sensible way for the people to relate to the government is one, the results that they see, not the potential result that the government is kind of showing out and telling people that would come. The results that they see and how well people feel that the government is achieving the goals of its kind of administrative playbook. And that comes with, how well, at the time you said you were going to achieve certain targets in your administrative playbook, how well are you achieving it? As I said to you, when I've actually looked at the renewed, hope agenda that of the president. And what I saw in there that was that if we're able to float naira, remove fuel subsidy, we are going to be able within a year to achieve between 500 and 600 of exchange rate. Why is that important? Nigeria is all about importation for at least the greater part of 80% of our consumption. So that is important. And by the time you have people looking at the fact that you haven't achieved as much so your intents are very fantastic. Your efforts are good, but I will tell you what, nobody pays for efforts. Nobody pays for intent. This is the same reason that Nokia failed. Nokia put in a lot of work, but the results were not, at parity with the effort and the intent. And so you have to understand that the people are not just impatient because that they are, wanting to be impatient. They are impatient because they lack clarity and direction of where we're going in terms of, okay, this is what the sacrifices we have to make. This is what the government is doing, and this is how long it's going to take for things to be better. And then when things get better, this is what getting better would look like. Those are the answers that the average person wants. And this is why I say we need clarity. I thought that clarity should have been in the government's playbook. But when I open it and I superimpose the reality on ground with what the playbook had said we will be able to achieve as of today, I worry because it's quite a variance between the playbook and what the governments are doing at the moment. So those are the four critical questions that the government must answer to rekindle the hope of Nigeria. Remember, I'll tell you what, Nigerians, there are two types of Nigerians out there. The ones that are protesting physically and the ones that are protesting mentally. And when you talk about mental protests, there are some that have lost the Nigerian factor in them. Nigerian factor means you are beginning to think about Japa, everything but Nigeria, including Japa to Ghana or anywhere else. And I think rekindling this hope is not just quelling the protest that is being physically driven on the street. It's also about quelling the mental protest and rekindling the hope of the Nigerianness in the average Nigerian.
Thanks so much, Dr. Enang is a senior energy analyst and a consultant, also a public affairs analyst. Thanks so much, Doctor, for joining with us. Give us a perspective on the state of the nation. However, we're looking forward to see government implementing some of these policies to address the challenges on ground. Thanks so much for joining us on the program. We'll have to go on a break right now, and once we return from the break, we'll get the conversation still started before we round up the program. Do stay with us.